If you're ranking the greatest point guards in history, which of these two players are you putting ahead of the other? Do you want the intensity, ruthlessness, and two-way greatness of Gary Payton? Or do you want the leadership, passing genius, and all-around greatness of Jason Kidd? I feel like this one is too close to call. When I was doing my top 100 players for my book, I went back and forth on this one. I eventually was able to convince myself why a certain player should be ranked ahead of the other. We'll get to that at the end of the video. But let's first see both sides of the debate. Let's start with Gary Payton, since he came into the league first. Here's a graphic of his accolades, how long his prime lasted, along with his combined averages, and the numbers he put up in his best seasons. There are two things that we associate him with. That's defense and steals, hence the nickname, the Glove. As we can see, he ranks in the top 5 in career steals. He is currently tied with Michael Jordan and Kevin Garnett, with the record for the most All-NBA defensive first-team selections, with 9. For the longest time, he was the only point guard to ever win the Defensive Player of the Year award, until Marcus Smart won it in 2022. There are so many examples that we can use to prove his defensive greatness, but here are a few noteworthy ones. He was primarily responsible for the 1994 Sonics to post the second most steals for a single season in history. They averaged as a team 12.8 steals per game. Then we have his tremendous defensive play in the 1996 playoffs. In the conference finals against the Utah Jazz, he held John Stockton at 9.9 points per game on 39.7% shooting and 7.6 assists per game for the series. He completely humiliated and outplayed one of the greatest point guards of all time. Then in the finals, after Gary Payton begged George Karl to guard Michael Jordan even though he had a leg injury, he had no choice but to oblige after being down 3-0 in the series. In the next 3 games, Jordan averaged 23.7 points per game on 36% shooting. This is the same player that won the MVP and the scoring title. He averaged 30.4 points per game on 49.5% shooting that season. That just goes to show how great of a defender he was, even though Jordan had the clear size advantage. It's as Kevin Johnson said to Phil Barber of Sporting News about Payton's defense, quote, "Think of guys with great hands like Maurice Cheeks and Derek Harper. Gary is like that. But he's also a great individual defender and a great team defender. He has all 3 components covered. That's very rare." End of quote. It's no wonder that he was able to have so much success with Seattle. For many people, that 1996 team is considered one of the greatest teams to never win a title. If it wasn't for them facing arguably the greatest team of all time, they would have won the whole thing. And the fact that they gave them so much trouble at the end of that series proves how great they were. Now here's another interesting stat on Payton's ability to lead a team. There were 2 other seasons where the Sonics won over 60 games. That came in the 1993/94 season and the 1997/98 season. So you could absolutely have tremendous success when he's your best player. Now what about the case against him? Believe it or not, he wasn't considered to be clutch early on in his career. There were 2 straight years where his team got bounced in the first round after being heavily favored. In 1994, the Sonics became the first team to lose in the first round as the number 1 seed. The following year, they lost to the Lakers in 4 games as the 4th seed, and many critics point out that Payton got outplayed by Nick Van Exel. Now granted, I give him a lot of credit for leading his team to the finals in 1996 and coming 1 game away from reaching the finals in 1993. The Sonics were in title contention for a good 3 years between 1996 to 1998. But I also can't ignore the fact that there were 3 first-round exits in 1 season where he failed to reach the postseason during the 90s. And although I give him a lot of credit for his clutch performance in Game 7 of the conference finals in 1996, I also can't ignore the 3 different occurrences where he failed to play up to his standard in a Game 7. We have the time where he scored 5 points on 2 of 14 shooting in Game 7 of the 1993 semifinal series against the Houston Rockets. Then the following series against the Phoenix Suns, he scored 9 points on 3 of 7 shooting in Game 7. And in Game 7 of the 1997 semifinal series against the Houston Rockets, he had 27 points on 9 of 22 shooting. In the fourth quarter, he failed to make a field goal. So Gary Payton had his chances of having an even better career, but he got in his own way at times. That's not to say that Gary Payton was not a clutch player. He made some big shots in the 2006 finals that played a big role in the Miami Heat winning the title. He made a big shot at Game 3 to help prevent the Heat from going down 3-0 in the series, and he had another clutch shot at Game 5 to help the Heat take the lead with 29 seconds left in overtime. So even though he was only a few weeks away from turning 38 years old, he was still putting his stamp on a crucial game that allowed him to earn his championship ring. It was a fitting end to a legendary career. Now let's talk about Jason Kidd. Let's put the same graphic up for him. His passing ability is certainly the first thing that we associate Kidd with, and he was one of the best to ever do it. He led the league in assists 5 times in his career, and that is tied for the 4th most ever. He's only behind John Stockton in career assists and steals, and that should be a big deal when evaluating his career. The fact that he currently ranks 2nd in steals proves that he was more than capable of playing lockdown defense. The numbers also indicate that he was the best rebounder for his position. He has the most rebounds by any point guard in history, and he even has more career rebounds than Alonzo Mourning. We can also say that Jason Kidd is one of the best two-way players to ever play his position. He's currently one of 12 players to have been selected for the All-NBA defensive team on 9 different occasions. The best example of his defensive greatness came in his first year with the New Jersey Nets. We all think about the way he transformed that team offensively, but his biggest impact came on the defensive end. The Nets went from having the 23rd worst defensive rating to the best defensive rating. He not only had the 3rd highest defensive win shares in the NBA, but is currently the 2nd highest by any point guard since the NBA/ABA merger. That was the biggest problem that the Nets had prior to his arrival, and he impacted their defense in ways that very few players in his position could. His strength and toughness allowed him to guard multiple positions and fight off bigger players on the block for rebounds. It's extremely rare that the smallest player on the team is an anchor for the best defensive team in the league, but Jason Kidd is one of those few exceptions. He was a team leader in steals, defensive win shares, defensive box plus minus, and defensive rating. And in the following year, he ended up with the highest defensive win shares by any point guard in the modern NBA. The career numbers that he has accumulated can be overwhelming, but the thing that we have to remember is that Kidd's value to his teams cannot be quantified by statistics alone. Wherever he went, his teams got a lot better. When Jason Kidd got traded to the Phoenix Suns, they went from a 40-42 record to a 56-26 record. Then he got traded to the New Jersey Nets, and they went from a 26-56 record to a 52-30 record. He even helped the Nets make 2 straight finals appearances. The New Jersey Nets were a lottery team with the same core. Players like Keith Van Horn and Kerry Kittles were not considered players that would help a team contend for a championship, but he uplifted all of their careers. Now, what about the case against him? The first thing is the 9 total seasons where he shot less than 40% from the field. Jason Kidd was not a good outside shooter for a large part of his career, and that could cause some to argue that he was a limited offensive player. And although he always helped his team overachieve in the regular season, he had trouble carrying his team in the postseason. From 1997 to 2001, Jason Kidd helped his teams win 6 out of the 22 games that he played in the playoffs, and he never helped his teams get past the first round. The only exception was in 2000, and he only played 1 game in that series against the San Antonio Spurs that was also missing Tim Duncan. Now, Jason Kidd found immense success with the New Jersey Nets in his first 2 years there. But isn't it interesting that it occurred in a period when the Eastern Conference was as weak as it's ever been in modern day history? The New Jersey Nets never experienced that same success once the Detroit Pistons and Indiana Pacers emerged as title contenders, then Shaq moved to Miami, and then LeBron James emerged as one of the game's best players. In fact, Jason Kidd never appeared back in the conference finals until 2011 when he was 37 years old and playing with the Dallas Mavericks. So it seems like he benefited from the small window of opportunity where the Eastern Conference was wide open and they didn't have that one powerhouse team. Then when I saw how important he was for the Mavericks in their 2011 title run, it made me question everything. He became the oldest starting point guard to ever lead a team to the title, and he was a reason why the Mavericks had such an efficient and beautiful half-court offense. In the previous years, their offense under former coach Avery Johnson was based on the Whiskey scoring off isolation plays. Once Rick Carlisle stepped in and let Jason Kidd run the offense, the Mavericks were able to take off. As much as everyone thinks that they were a one-man show and Dirk carried them, Jason Kidd had a lot to do with that team winning it all. And that's what convinced me to pick Jason Kidd over Gary Payton. You would have rather played with him over Gary, and that has nothing to do with their personalities. It's that no matter what talent you surrounded Kidd with, he was going to make it 10 times better. With Payton, that wasn't always the case. As a Lakers fan, I can tell you that it didn't always work out with him. Aside from Kidd's career numbers, he was super close to winning the MVP award in 2002. On the other hand, Payton was never really a serious candidate at any point in his career. So that's what I think. But like I said, it's a very close call. Let me know whose side you're on in the comment section. I'm also pleased to announce that my upcoming book, where I count down the 325 greatest regular seasons by a player, is almost completed. So subscribe to my channel for upcoming release dates so you can be the first one to read one of the greatest history books out there. Thanks for watching.